This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. I am here with Melanie Benson of MelanieBenson.com, known to you and me as the Profit Amplifier. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's always fun when you hear somebody say your monikers. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's what I do.
That's it. That is it. Now, before we turned on the microphones, and people need to know this, I said, Melanie, we could take this conversation all kinds of different places because you are a Swiss Army knife of talent. The first place to start, and I think I started following you back in 2006 or 2007, and just watching your business evolve and change and pivot. Talk a little bit about your professional journey that brought you to entrepreneurship, and then even some of the stops along the way about how your expertise has evolved since all those years ago.
Yeah. Oh, it's fun to hear that you and I have been connected that long. Sometimes people have been in the background for a really long time and you don't know they're watching, which is a great lesson for all of us. Even if people aren't showing up and connecting with you, that doesn't mean they're not paying attention, right? So I started my business in 2000. And so guess what? Like we're going into my 20th year of being in business, and I was in corporate before. My big pivot that moved me away from thinking about having my own business and dreaming about, being able to have more control was realizing that I didn't want to be on the road 300, 200 days a year for someone else. If I was going to be on the road that much, I might as well be growing my own business. And I fell in love with the idea of helping people achieve bigger goals than they knew were possible. So my first real huge pivot as a business owner is I actually started my business just thinking I'm going to coach people. And I very quickly realized that that's not profitable. Just being a coach is not necessarily going to do the job. And nobody really thinks they want to hire a coach, especially 20 years ago before it was really a popular thing. And I had to really learn how to articulate the problem I solve for people so that people didn't just look at me like a deer in the headlights and go, yeah, that's nice, young lady. You go build that business, but really went, wow, how do I work with you to get out of overwhelm and achieve my 7-figure business? So messaging became a really huge pivot for me. And, I'm sure in the, 12, 15 years that we've been connected online, you've seen me swerve and pivot and do a few things. I got a lot of my sea legs in business, learning about online marketing, online business. It was really surging. There was so much new technology. There were so many new opportunities in that space. And I landed some very lucrative partnerships that just opened major doors quickly. My business soared in record numbers right out of the gate. But what I didn't realize was I was building a business that everyone else thought I should have. I wasn't building the business that I was passionate about and that was going to keep me stoking the fire when burnout and exhaustion and, what do I really want to do with my life questions started to evolve. And I think anybody who's been in business this long, David, as I'm sure you can relate, we've kind of had to keep reinventing ourselves. So one of the big pivots was recognizing that I have a lot of different things I do. As you mentioned, I'm a Swiss Army knife, but what do I really want to do? And what I realized that was one of my superpowers, and it's just what flows and it comes out over and over and over again, is helping people level up the mindset and the strategies so they can become more visible. I call it like removing the cloak of invisibility. So, if we watched Harry Potter, he's got that cloak that just immediately makes him invisible. And they realize there's a lot of people who are very passionate about what they're doing, and yet they seem to be invisible to opportunity and clients. But I never really had that problem. So I started to look at what was the things I did naturally that I could teach them how to do. And so that's really become my great love, and why I started teaching things like my Own Your Bold Influence Challenge, and why I created a program called Amplify, why I hosted a podcast called Amplify Your Success, because I really wanted to continue to inspire other people to do things they didn't even believe they could do, David. But when they really tapped into their own superpowers, they found it was much easier than they imagined.
Yeah, wow. So I want to go back to something provocative. You said a couple of provocative things right there, but one of the things you said is, At first, I thought I wanted to be a coach, and I realized that's not really a high profit business to be in, meaning that it doesn't scale. It's completely dependent on your own time, attention, and presence. Maybe even to a certain extent, coaching itself has become commoditized. So if you label yourself a coach, you're going to have more problems with positioning and packaging and so forth. What was the light bulb moment about, oh my gosh, I've built myself a job?
I love that. Yes. So I'm one of those people who, when I want to create something better and I want to go to that next level, I study how do people think? How do they make decisions? What strategies do they use? And I was looking at like, how do people actually create a six-figure business? At that point, my sights were still on breaking that six-figure mark. And I realized in my coach training, because I actually went and got certified as a coach and got all the skills and the background on that. But the way they taught you back then to build a coaching business is go sell your 3 sessions a month as packages for like $350. And so I like to tap into logic, right? Like I think sometimes we get into fear and we see things are not possible because we make it up in our mind. Well, let's plot it out. So I started plotting it out, David, and I said, all right, how many clients do I have to serve to break 6 figures? That's starting to feel like a job, right? We're looking at 45 people a month. And I thought I wanted my own business to have time freedom. I wanted the independence to go to yoga, to go hiking, to go to the beach, to do whatever I felt like doing in the moment and not feel trapped in a job. But yet I was going to build a job to break 6 figures. And that's when the light bulb went off. And I thought, there has got to be a better way to scale my impact and the outcomes I can teach people without getting trapped in delivering it one-to-one. And that's actually became one of my first major breakthrough moments in business is I embodied it so quickly and I started growing so quickly because I was leveraging my time and creating group programs that were really popular. People were like, can you teach me what you just did? So that became kind of one of the first big signature offerings that I got well known for.
And this is so great because a lot of people spend a lot of years in that one-on-one mode, like yours truly, before realizing, wait a second, I'm kind of stuck here and I'm not sure. But you got the light bulb moment early. When you first started teaching group programs one-to-many, what was the topic or what were the topics of those group programs?
The very first one I ever taught was on how to get out of overwhelm, but continue to grow your business. And this also is a really interesting study in marketing and understanding your client base. The reason I tapped into that was I was going to a lot of events as a speaker. That was one of my growth strategies in the beginning. And I was seeing all these people go to all these events and not getting any results, not doing anything different, not really seeing measurable progress. And I thought, what's going on for them? And I realized they were overwhelmed. They had all this information, but they had no idea how to execute on it. And so I started to solve the problem that other really big name marketers and big name business mentors at the time were creating. They were delivering so much information, but not teaching people how to implement in a way that would get them great results. So I started to specialize in that. And then I moved to leverage strategies. I had a program called the Fast Track to Lifestyle Business. You might even remember that one. And that was all about how do you fast track more time for yourself? Well, you've got to learn how to leverage. So those were 2 of my very early popular programs.
Now, I know that one of the things that you work on now is specifically growth strategy, scaling strategy, 3x, 5x, 10x, the business that you're running. Part of that and part of your genius, it's not just take the same business that you have now and add things to it. It's about foundationally changing your value proposition or how you talk about what you do, the articulation, the distinction, the vocabulary, right? The positioning, basically. Let's talk about that because I know that a lot of people, they look at other experts or other authors and they go, that's such a great idea. That's such a great hook. That's such a, no wonder that person, it's easy for them because they came up with fill in the blank. They came up with start with why. They came up with purple cow. They came up with, business mastery. It's like, well, Tony Robbins did a lot of smart things beyond naming his program Business Mastery. But if we have that DNA and that positioning and packaging baked into our program, is it easier to scale? Is it easier to amplify our profits?
Well, you've brought up something really extraordinary because I think it's the crux. Like, this is the Achilles heel for so many people who are very talented, they're very smart, but yet they feel oftentimes they're still invisible to ideal clients and they get stuck like, well, I must not be good at what I'm doing. Or maybe, like if I'm getting passed over for that speaking opportunity, why? And what I've discovered is it has everything to do with how well you can articulate what you called your value proposition. I call it messaging your magic. Can you message it in a way that somebody else goes, I need that? And do you even know who your people are? So that's part two to the equation, right? So I've had some clients over the years, which I'm sure everybody can relate to, who are so passionate about what they're doing and they're committed to it, but who they're trying to sell it to is all wrong. So they're frustrated. It's like, I know this can help them, but they don't buy it. Well, that's because they either don't get what you're doing or they can't buy it because they don't have the financial bandwidth or it's not a priority for them. And so I started to create what I called my bold influence formula. How do you have language and messaging and programs and marketing elements that just pop for people and it pulls them in like a magnet? And that's because people get what you're doing solves a costly problem that they are ready to do something about. The other thing that happens, and I'm sure no one listening to this can relate to this at all, is people start to fall in love with the process they deliver, and they don't understand that people don't buy process, they buy results. We're talking about my big radical awareness that if I am a coach and I'm branded as a coach, is that going to pigeonhole me in a way that would hold me back? And one of my great ahas was that people only look for a coach when they have been told they need a coach that will solve the problem. It's like you don't go looking for a therapist until you know the therapist is the person that solves the problem. And then you're in the yellow pages or now on Google, right? Looking up therapists in your area. You don't go about like looking for a special accountant until you know you need an accountant, right? So people don't buy the feature, they buy the result. And that is such a huge piece that, David, I think is what's missing. And people don't understand how to reach their ideal audience by communicating to the problem first. And then this is how I solve it. So those were some huge breakthroughs for me early on. And then, when people get stuck financially, I don't have enough clients, I'm not being seen. I always go back and look at what are the talks they're doing. So what's their signature talk, right? How do they position it? And 9 out of 10 times, it's vanilla and it's not popping and it's not standing out. Or you've got somebody who doesn't really have enough clients and I look at their offering or their lead magnet on their site and it's like, I don't get what this does. So those are the places I like to call them optimizing them. Let's find the thing that where your superpower is and how could we optimize the language, optimize the client experience so they can't pass it up.
Hey, this interview is a real moneymaker. If you're serious about ramping up your reach and revenue as a speaker, trainer, or expert, book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team. The link is doitmarketing.com/call. It will be the most valuable 45 minutes you invest in your speaking-driven business. Speaking of value, let's get back to the show. Are there examples or even like before and after, just even in a generic sense, of where you have kind of a same old lame-o program or a same old lame-o keynote or coaching package versus something where it's just a showstopper and you're like, oh my God, like you said, I need that. We're like, Give me your card. Melanie, we have to talk immediately. Or even what was your transformation going from that kind of same old lame-o generic coach to the profit amplifier?
Here's one really simple example. Tapping into this profit amplifier piece, I have a toolkit that I offer to my clients where they can plan like this 4-step planning process. And so in the beginning, I would call it a 4-step planning process. And then through brainstorming with my team and really looking at like, what does the market respond to? We realize what pops is when people realize they can uncover their unique profit amplifier and then 10x their effort around it to double and triple their revenue. Okay, so 4-part planning system. All right. If you uncover your unique profit amplifier and you double down on it or 10x your focus on it, you're going to double and triple your revenue. The sexy factor is totally different, right? I have one on the speaking too. I'll share. It's a client story. So I do a lot of coaching and mentoring for people who are going to pitch their speaking services, and they all get in their head, get all twisted up. And it's like, okay, what am I going to do? So I had a client who was very, very talented, does high performance coaching, but his topic was something like the 3 steps to clarity, confidence, and courage. I'm like, okay, well, I know there's clarity, confidence, and courage, but probably going to sound like the 200 other people there. So we started to fine tune it, and it's kind of evading me what we landed on, but we found a way to make it pop so that when he took the stage and he pitched his topic, he had a line of people. And I think it was something like he's been trained as a shaman, but he's also a high performance coach. And so we found a way to blend both of those together so that he was talking about how to tap into the shaman inside and level up your business by 10 to 200 times or something like that. So it's finding the way to make what you do pop and bring out your unique superpower in the process. Because that's what people want. They want to feel you. They want to get you. They want to have rapport and connection with you. First of all, if you sound like everybody else, they don't get it. And secondly, it's probably not really telling them what they're feeling inside. And David, I find that it's really unique to each person. We can't just follow a cookie cutter and do it. You got to really dig in and understand who your market is, what their pain points are, and what lights you up, like what's really making you unique. And sometimes we have to do a little digging to figure that out.
Well, let's also talk about this whole concept of just making more money or 10xing your business. Some people listening might be thinking, well, the only way I can make more money, Melanie, is if I charge more. And if I charge more, my clients are not going to buy. My clients are not going to, I'm having a hard enough time getting clients with my current pricing. So let's unpack both levels of that. Number one, is it just about raising the price? Maybe some people need to raise their price and figure out other ways to multiply and amplify their revenue streams or their revenue generating activity. So let's talk about the mindset challenges around both those things, increasing the fee and then adding new profit centers to your business.
I don't believe there's one way to scale revenue. I think we have to find the right way for you. And it's interesting that people kind of default to, well, I have to raise my prices and the market won't bear that. Well, what if it's not about raising your prices, but it's scaling how you deliver it? Or it's teaching other people how to do what you do so that you're gaining revenue every time they're out teaching your formula, right? So we have to find, again, what's really aligned with what you want for your business model. And I'll get into some specifics, but you brought up these resistance points. And I think it's worth mentioning that a lot of people go, Melanie, I can't work more. And that's the only way I know how to grow my revenue. And what happens is there becomes this deep embedded mindset conflict. If the only way you know how to grow your revenue is to work more hours or do more of something you don't believe you can do, you will feel at war with your growth strategy, and then resistance and procrastination and fears come up and you get stalled. And so one of the first things we have to do if you do want to grow your revenues is we have to create an aligned mindset. You literally have to create and embody the belief system of somebody who is at that level. And you have to figure out how to do it so that you feel excited, not just doing it because somebody tells you to do it, because that's not sustainable. I think what I always come back to is this idea of a unique profit amplifier is there's something that you do that when you offer it to your best clients, it like exponentially delivers profit and revenue potential. So the best way I can describe it is I'll explain it through a client. I uncovered this was she was an accountant. She came to me very overwhelmed and was like, Melanie, I know you get people out of overwhelm. Can you please help me? I'm working 80 hours a week all year long. I'm never taking breaks. And in the tax season, it's even worse. And she had this dream of working a 4-day work week, but continuing to grow her revenue. And so the first thing I do is this 4-step planning process where I uncover the unique profit amplifier. And what I realized was she was spending 80% of her time on leveraged programs that were less than 5% of her overall revenue base. And I think we all do this at some point. It's like, well, I know that will pay off down the line, so I need to keep investing in it to grow it. And when I really pushed back on her and challenged her to get clear, what business do you want to be in? Because that leveraged program wasn't for her ideal clients. It was for other accountants. And I'm like, is that really the business you want to be in? And somebody had embedded in her psyche, you have to grow this way. And so what we did is we went back and looked at what really would grow her profits. She had a program that if she invested an hour of her time, she had an 80% profit margin on something that she does called profit planning. And she was spending less than 10% of her time on it. So very quickly flipping her focus to the profit expansion opportunity that also when she sold those, 60% of those people became accounting and bookkeeping clients. So guess what? She not only has her greatest profit from that, she also produces reoccurring revenue streams. Flipping that, she started to double and triple her revenue again. I still had to work on her ambition to bring her hours down, right? Because ambition is our enemy here. It's like, oh, now I can do this. But it's the pathway. And getting that clarity is where I think real expansion of revenue comes from. And everybody has their own unique model that they need to connect to. But I think that's one that most of us can find a offering that can lead to reoccurring revenue or other sales.
Super quick commercial break. Isn't this interview amazing? If you'd like to get more ideas on how to start or grow your speaking business fast, pop over to our free training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. Let me also ask you, because I know one of your specialties is in working with speakers and thought leaders and experts. When you look at, let's say someone's doing a lot of speaking and training, and then you discover that, well, if you did a group coaching or a high-end, kind of high-ticket group program, you could make 3x, 5x, 10x. But now here's where they hit the roadblock. Because you've got coach training. I personally do not have coach training. That has never stopped me from coaching and consulting and mentoring people. I'm more of a consultant than I am a traditional capital C coach. But people will say, oh, Melanie, I'm not like you. I have no coach training. I couldn't possibly do a group coaching program. Or you say, well, you could do this high-end consulting. Oh, I never went to consulting school. I don't know the first thing about consulting. But they have expertise. They have genuine knowledge, genuine track record, genuine experience, genuine expertise. You start to introduce these distribution methods for their expertise, and that's when the fear kicks in. Oh, I can't coach. Oh, I can't possibly teach. Oh, my goodness, I've never gone to consulting school. My personal opinion is throw yourself into it and go. Figure it out on the way. Not everyone's wired like you and me. How do you get over some of those mindset blocks? I don't have a coaching certification. I've never gone to consulting school. I have no idea about instructional design. I can't run a training workshop. Walk us through that.
Well, what you're saying is that people's fear of not knowing enough gets in the way, right? Or not having enough training. And so there's many personalities on this path called build a business. And you hit it on the head. Like some of us are more risk tolerant and some of us are more risk averse. And the first thing you have to do is wrap your head around. You have to be willing to take risks to grow in this kind of business. The second thing is you have to get clear, what kind of business am I really in? One of the big mindset shifts I had to embrace was I'm actually not in the business of coaching. I'm in the business of results. And I had to be willing to learn how to take risks, to play online, like figure out how to do the online thing. I have to be willing to figure out or hire help on any area I don't know how to do. And that's why I say hire a coach and figure out how to build a program that's around your magic, your superpowers, your strengths. Don't call it coaching if you don't feel like you're a good coach. And this probably begs a little distinction. I believe in, you called yourself a consultant. We use coaching like we use the word Kleenex, right? Like you may or may not have bought a box of Kleenex, but you probably call it Kleenex instead of tissues. It's like a Xerox machine. There is a Xerox brand, but we call it going to the Xerox machine when we want to make a copy. Well, I believe that coaching is a term that has been genericized by simply delivering a service called guide somebody through these steps. But there's actually a distinction between being a mentor which is you've learned how to do something and you now mentor and guide other people to do it. And being a coach, which is you know how to ask really strategic questions to extract someone's brilliance and guide them to do things they don't believe they can do. When you put the two together, you have a very powerful combination. But just because you've never been trained in coaching doesn't mean you can't learn some simple techniques to be a coach or, use coaching strategy to get greater results from people. That being said, when you let things like that stick you and you get into fear and procrastination, I truly believe that is your fear disguising itself as logic. The logic says, oh, I don't know how to do that, so I can't possibly build a business around it. Or I don't have training, so I have to get trained first. Or I don't know how to go online with my business. I don't know how to do something virtually. So you don't. That's you needing to know how instead of making the commitment to the outcome and then letting the path reveal itself. If you want to accomplish bold goals, you got to get out of the way and just focus on what you want and be willing to ask for support to get there. So I say, if you want to expand your revenue, you want to have a greater impact in the world, pick a model that gets you excited and then hire a mentor, hire a coach, join someone's program, or just learn how to do it. Figure it out as you go. Like you said, a lot of people are brave enough to just kind of make mistakes along the way and not take it personally. You got to know what business you're in. You want to play bigger? Figure out a model that'll get you there and just figure it out as you go.
And I love what you said, that we're all in the results business. We're not in the coaching business or the training business or the keynote business or the online course business. We are in the results business. And really, here's another disconnect, I think. When people are creating an online program or course, group mentoring, whatever it is, they think, I got to throw in everything in the kitchen sink. The more content, in fact, the more expensive my program is, the more content I have to jam in there. It needs to be hundreds of hours. It needs to be thousands of pages of PDFs. And I want to get your opinion on this. My opinion is the less that's in that program that will get them the same level of success, the more valuable it is. Because our job as mentors and coaches and consultants and as results accelerators is to shorten the path and to accelerate the speed that they get to an outcome they already want. If you have thousands of PDFs in your coaching program, is that going to slow them down or speed them up? Probably slow them down. If there's hundreds of hours of content that you have to consume as opposed to 6 or 8 or 10, is that going to slow them down or is that going to speed them up? How do you handle that sort of, it's almost like guilt that, oh, I couldn't possibly charge that much. It's only 8 hours of stuff. It's only a 50-page workbook. I have to go write another 150 pages before it's worthy.
Well, first of all, we need to understand that this is a sophisticated self-worth issue. Okay. So we're not selling an hour of your time. We are providing people access to a lifetime of knowledge and experience that gets delivered in an hour, right? Or through a course. So one of the mindset shifts that has to happen is you have to reprogram and recalibrate your thinking about what you're actually delivering. You're not delivering you're delivering your experience. I truly believe that this is a theme that is going to catch on even more in 2020 and then beyond. And that is simplify allows you to multiply. I have been holding this theme in my own life. About 3 years ago, it was my theme of the year. And then I realized the more I simplified, the more my revenue multiplied. Right now, my mastermind is a pretty significant investment and they're not getting, thousands of courses. They get coaching and consulting directly with me. They get mastermind time and they get access to a training each month. And it's all tied together. And I think this idea that we have to over deliver comes from the early internet marketing days with the thud factor, right? It's like we need to create this thud and impress them. But what if the impression was how you help people connect the dots and get results versus how much stuff you send them so they feel like they're getting an impression of a lot of value? What people want is the fastest way to get to results. You hit it dead on there.
Totally spot on. We could not agree more. We could not agree more on many, many of the smart things that you said. So thank you. Well, two final questions here as we're wrapping up. The final question is, how do people get connected and stay connected to more Melanie Benson brilliance? But before we get to that, Melanie, if people were to take one central idea from our conversation today about all of these different smart strategies and insights into multiplying their profits, what do you hope that one single idea might be?
Again, if we kind of pull this thread of simplify to multiply, one of the greatest pivots I had was to stop creating new programs and ideas just because I can, and create one signature process that solves a problem that my most favorite clients are struggling with, and then create a journey around that. So you may have a lower cost option that leads to a middle cost option if that feels good to you. It may be that you lead them directly into your big ticket offering, but figure out how can you simplify what you're offering so your clients, your prospects can faster figure out how to work with you. And that all lies in that unique profit amplifier. If you really understand what that is, you can language and message your magic more effectively so that people can lean in and say yes faster.
Amazing. Really good insight. Especially, I love the multiple entry points into the same unique experience, right? Small, medium, large, and super size.
Yeah. And by the way, it took me a while to learn that. I don't want anybody to think I was like, I started a business and I got that down perfectly. I had to make all those mistakes to realize how unprofitable it was to try to manage multiple offerings with multiple entry points and multiple marketing channels. It just wasn't making me happy, and it wasn't easy for my clients to know what to do. So this was a 4-year retooling, but it was worth every penny I spent to rebrand, reintegrate all of these things into one core, path.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about how do people get onto this path, because they want more Melanie Benson brilliance. Where do they go? What can we give them? And we're going to link all of these things up in the show notes right under this episode at thespeakingshow.com. But where can we send people to connect more with you?
Well, I have something that I think will be a perfect place to start. I teach people 7 core profit amplifiers, 7 amplifiers that I find tried and true. No matter what kind of business you're in, you can pick one, if not all of them, and you should see your revenue and your results 10x within 90 days to a year if you're newer and starting from scratch. But pick one and focus on them at a time. And you can find them at melaniebenson.com/speaking show. So just remember David's show, and then you'll remember the URL. And what you'll find there is we've created a Facebook community. I share all kinds of tips and resources throughout the week to help you remember how to think, know what strategies to take, like focusing on one strategy. I share my podcast there. We create conversation. We create insight and collaboration opportunities with other movers and shakers in our industry. So you'll get an invitation to join the community while you're there. But at a bare minimum, if you download and get these 7 amplifiers, which I'll email to you over 7 days, you're going to find that getting those results that you want is not as far out of touch as you think it is. It's just one amplifier step away.
Wow. Everyone's one key idea away from a 6-figure or multi-6-figure or maybe even 7-figure business, depending on where you're starting from.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, remember, it's about focus. Focus on the one.
Mic drop right there.
Boom.
It's about focus, people. All right. Melanie Benson, you are awesome. We have to have you back because, like I said, this was like just one Swiss Army knife blade. We probably got 17 more things. We got 17 more shows that we could fill with all of your genius and all of your generosity. So thank you.
Happy to come back whenever. I'm looking forward to connecting with the listeners and hearing what was the big aha and action you can take from what we talked about today.
The gauntlet has been thrown down. Don't let Melanie down, people. Implement. All right. Thank you, my friend. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, you too.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.